Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Ta'anit, pages 16 through 22, Tet Zayin through Chaf Bet. 16. Lama yotzim larachov. Why is it that on a public fast day we go out of the synagogue and into the public domain, to the street, to the town square to conduct services? Lamar zaknu b'tzina, to say we have cried out to God in a private setting of the synagogue, v'lo na'aninu, but we were not answered. So we will now degrade ourselves, embarrass ourselves in a public setting as we cry out to God for salvation. Alternatively, galinu, we have exiled ourselves from our place of ordinary worship, and our exile shall atone for us. Why do we place ashes on top of the ark? As if to say, Imo anochi bitzara, that God is with us in our hour of distress. It's a citation from the Tanakh that God is with us in our hour of distress. Yud Zayin. Tanu Rabbanan. We learned in a Braita. Melech mistaper b'chol yom. A king gets a haircut every day. Kohen gadol me'erev Shabbat le'erev Shabbat. And the high priest gets a haircut every Friday. Kohen Ediot, and an average Kohen, an ordinary Kohen, achat l'shloshim yom, gets a haircut once every 30 days. So the question is, why must a king have a haircut every day? So they quote the pasuk, Melech b'yafyo techezena einecha, that your eyes shall behold the king in his beauty, meaning that he has to have grooming done for him every day, so that whenever the commoners see him, they will see him in his best appearance. Why does a Kohen Gadol have to get a haircut every week? Because on Shabbat, that's when the new Kohanic watch, the new Mishmar, arrives on the scene to serve their week in the temple. And so the Kohen Gadol wants to be viewed by his subordinates whenever they show up each week, when he is looking at his best. And as for a regular Kohen, every 30 days, because the halacha requires that they not grow an overabundance of hair. Yud Chet, 18. Mitamnaya be'aviad sof mu'ada, itotev chada de shvuaya de lo mispod. So this is a citation from Megillat Ta'anit, the scroll of fast, which, as we've seen before, is a misnomer. It's not a scroll of fast days, it's a scroll of days on which you are not allowed to fast, because these are semi-holidays, partial holidays, because the Jews had a victory over our adversaries, whether a Gentile adversary or a sectarian Jewish adversary. And what this passage of Megillat Ta'anit is saying is that from the 8th day of the month of Nisan through the end of the holiday of Pesach, we do not even give eulogies, let alone fast, because this was the time when the Pharisees defeated their rivals, the Sadducees and Bythusians, concerning the date of Shavuot. That the Pharisees said that Shavuot is Mimacharat HaShabbat, that the Omer is brought on the morrow of the Sabbath, but the Sabbath means the first day of Pesach, so the Omer is brought on the 16th of Nisan, and Shavuot is any day of the week, but 7 weeks after that, as opposed to the Sadducean position, which was that Shabbat means literally Saturday, and Shavuot is therefore always on a Sunday. Yud Tet. 19. Tanu Rabbanan. Matrian al ha'ilanot, b'shar shnei Shavua, v'al shichin ma'arot afilu b'shvi'it. So we cry out to God over the problems concerning the trees, the fruit trees, on the other years of the sabbatical cycle, but not the Shemitah year. And as for the wells and the ditches and the caves where you have water, we'll cry out every year, including the Shemitah year, because you need water every day of your life, and certainly during the Shemitah year. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, however, says, Al aflinot b'shar shnei b'shvi'it, mipnei yesh behen parnasa l'ani'im, that will even cry out over the sake of the trees in the sabbatical year, despite the fact that you can't grow any produce that year, because still the wild produce that grows on the trees without any planting was relied upon for sustenance by the impoverished people, the poor people, the aniyim. They need the sabbatical year produce, which they grab for free, and so therefore, if there's not enough of it, we will pray for the ilanot. Okay. Daf Chaf. Shalut Rabbi Zera. They asked Rabbi Zera, how did you live a long life? What did you do to merit a long life? So he told them, I never got too angry at anybody in my house. And I didn't walk in front of someone who was a greater scholar than I am. And I didn't contemplate Torah thoughts in filthy areas. In, let's say, a bathroom or where there's excrement, you're not allowed to study Torah. I never thought of Torah thoughts in those places. And I never walked 4 cubits without Torah study, where I'm allowed to study Torah, and without tefillin. I never took a nap in the Beis Medrash. If I was in the yeshiva hall, I was always alert and not sleeping. And lo sasti b'takos chaverai. I never got my jollies. I never rejoiced over the downfall, the stumbling of my fellow. And I never called my colleague by their nickname. It's not nice. They don't like it. I never called them by their nickname. Chaf Amru le Shmuel. They told Shmuel, the Amora, there's a plague in Bechozoi. Gazatanita, so he declared a public fast. But they told him, but that Bechozai is far away from here. What does it matter that there's a plague there? We live here. What do you need to fast here for? And he said, there's no river separating that area from our area. So people could travel back and forth and get us sick. In a time of a pandemic, of COVID, we can readily appreciate this idea. The world is a global village and people travel from all over the parts of the world by plane, by boat. And so just because there's no illness here now doesn't mean there won't be at some later time. Shmuel was already cognizant of that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, that illnesses can travel. Chafbet. Rabbi Yossi, Omer Yachid Rashi L'Sagav Batanis. So Rabbi Yossi said a person is not allowed to afflict themselves heavily with repeat fasting over some concern of theirs where there is no public fast that has been declared. That a yachid, an individual, should not take it upon himself to overdo it with the fasting over some potential calamity. Why? Because maybe you'll weaken yourself so thoroughly that you won't be able to provide a parnasa, a livelihood for yourself, and you'll have to rely upon others, the kindness of strangers. And who's to say that people will be kind to you? Maybe they'll have no mercy on you. My time. So what's the biblical source for this? That says in the beginning of Bereshit, that man was for a nefesh chaya, becomes a living being. Nishamar natati b'cha. So the homiletic interpretation is, God says, I gave a soul to you, a life to you. Hachaya. Keep it alive. Don't do foolish things that will get yourself killed, like repeat fasting. So we're told to be concerned for our well-being, have a good meal. Everyone have a Shavua Tov, a good week.